In the few minutes it's going to take to watch this, thousands of cyber attacks will have already been launched around the world. We hear this term information security thrown around all the time, right? But what does it actually mean for you and for your data? Well, we're about to break down all the essential concepts you really need to know to stay safer online. Let's dive in. At its absolute core, this is what security is all about. It's not some passive thing that just sits there. It's an active conflict. The whole point is to build something that works, that does its job even when someone, an adversary, is actively trying to make it fail. Okay, so if security is a conflict, what are the rules of engagement? Before we can even start talking about defending our data, we first have to get really clear on what it is we're trying to protect. All right, I know, this is the formal definition. It sounds a little dense, but it's really just a fancy way of saying we need to protect our data from being seen, changed, or destroyed by people who shouldn't be touching it. And that goes for everything, whether it's on a computer or just a piece of paper in a file. And this brings up something that trips a lot of people up. Information security is the big umbrella. It covers everything, from locking a filing cabinet to shredding documents. Cybersecurity is a piece of that puzzle, specifically focused on our digital world. Protecting our networks and data with things like firewalls, which act like digital guards for your computer. To really make sense of this constant struggle, security pros often frame it like a game between two teams. You've got the red team, those are the attackers, always poking and prodding, looking for weaknesses. And then you have the blue team. They're the defenders, the ones building and maintaining the walls. And here's the thing, to be any good at security, you have to understand how both sides think. So, if you're on the blue team, what's your rule book? How do you even begin to build your defenses? Well, it all comes down to this foundational model known as the CIA triad. And no, not that CIA. The C in this CIA stands for confidentiality, and that's all about secrecy. It's the simple promise that your private information stays private. I mean, when you log into your email, you expect that only you can read your messages, right? That's confidentiality in action. Next up, the I stand for integrity. This is all about trust. It's about making sure your data is accurate and that nobody has tampered with it. For example, when you submit a job application online, integrity is what guarantees that the information the employer receives is exactly what you sent. No sneaky changes along the way. And finally, the A stands for availability. You can think of this as reliability. It just means that the systems and data are there for you when you need them. Think about an e-commerce site during a huge Black Friday sale. Availability is what ensures that website stays online and actually works even with a massive flood of people trying to buy stuff. An ATM is actually the perfect real-world example of how these three principles have to work together. Confidentiality? That's your private PIN code. Only you should know it. Integrity? The bank's system makes sure every transaction record is perfectly accurate and can't be altered. And availability? Well, the machine is out there, public, and almost always on, ready for you when you need cash. You see, all three have to be in place for that whole system to be secure. So that's the defender's blueprint. But what about the other side? Now that we know the rules the blue team is trying to follow, let's totally flip the script and take a look at the red team's playbook for breaking them. Generally speaking, attacks fall into two big categories. A passive attack is kind of like someone secretly listening in on your phone call when you're on public Wi-Fi. They're just gathering info without you even knowing. But an active attack is way more direct. That's like someone intercepting an email you sent and actually changing the bank account number before it gets to the recipient. So, how does an attack actually work? It always, and I mean always, comes down to these three key ingredients. An attacker needs a motive, the why they're doing it. They need a vulnerability, a crack in the armor, and they need a method, the tool or technique to exploit that crack. Now, the crucial thing to remember here is that an attack fails if you take away just one of these elements. So here are a few common methods right from the attacker's playbook. A masquerade is basically like someone using a fake ID to get into a secure building. A replay attack is like recording the sound of a key unlocking a door and just playing it back later to open it again. And a denial of service attack? Imagine sending thousands of junk mail letters to a mailbox so the real mail can't even fit inside. It's the same idea. We've been talking about this big, high-level battle between attackers and defenders. But now, let's bring it all home and talk about how this stuff impacts your day-to-day life online. Because this isn't just about big corporations and governments. This exact same battle is happening right now, on your phone, on your laptop, and in your email inbox, every single day.
For most of us, the front line looks a lot like this. Attackers use social engineering. That's psychological manipulation to trick you into giving up secrets. They use malware, nasty, malicious software to infect your devices, and they are relentlessly trying to break into your accounts with all kinds of password attacks.
Let's just zoom in on phishing for a second, which is a classic type of social engineering. You might look at those spam emails and wonder, why do they even bother? Well, it's a pure numbers game. If a criminal sends out 1 million fake emails, they only need a tiny, tiny fraction of people to click for that scam to be incredibly profitable. For them, it's super low effort and potentially very high reward. So what can you do about all this? Well, your personal Blue Team strategy really starts with a few key habits. Use strong, unique passwords for every single account. Please enable multi-factor authentication, that extra code you get on your phone, whenever you possibly can. Keep your software updated. And maybe most importantly, just practice some healthy skepticism. If an email or a link feels a little bit off, it probably is. And this really brings us to our final thought. Security isn't a product you can just go out and buy. And it's not a state you can achieve once and then you're done. It's an ongoing process. It's a continuous battle between the red teams and the blue teams. The goal isn't really to be unhackable, because that's probably impossible. The goal is to be resilient, to be prepared, and to be a much, much harder target for any adversary that decides to come your way.